Welcome, everybody. It's so great to see everyone. And when we're doing a discipleship conference, of course, that's just in my wheelhouse and my great love. So I'm really glad to be able to be here. I do want to give a little round of applause on Zoom for the advocacy and discipleship group. What a great presentation. It's really inspiring. And thank you for that. It fits perfectly with what I'm about to talk about. So thank you for that. So what I'm going to be talking about this morning is a brand new program. It's a brand new initiative. It's just starting now. And I want to give you a sense of what it is, where it is, and how you can get involved. So we're going to just go through that today. And there will be opportunities for questions. We'll be following chat as well, and to involve everyone as much as we can. When we talk about discipleship in the Diocese of New Jersey, I always start everything we do with our purpose. You all have heard me talk about keeping the main thing. And we always have to remember that we're here to form disciples of Jesus Christ, to take part in God's mission of reconciliation in the world. The last presentation, we talked about where they intersect. Reconciliation and discipleship intersect, and we are fully in alignment with that, and very happy that we're all working in this direction. So if we want to do this, we know that parents, anyone who works in formation around children's formation, knows that the most important influence on a child's spiritual development, their growth in their faith, is their parents. Sometimes it's their grandparents too, your caregivers that are living with them. They watch those folks, they watch what they do, and they learn a lot about faith from things that are said and not said. So what happened was, a few months ago, we thought, well, let's try something new. Let's see what we can do to help those folks. And we had one of our lead coaches said, we have well-trained and faithful coaches, and we have caregivers who want their children to grow in faith. What happens if we pair them up? What happens? How might it help? How might it make a difference for the folks that are out there and doing this work? And the parents, who one of the primary responsibilities of parents is the spiritual development, formation of their kids. And parents know this, and they know that spiritual formation affects the formation of all the other parts of a child's life, because spirituality is the ground, that's the basis for our lives. And so it all comes together that way. So we said, why don't we see what we can do about pairing them up? And so we developed the CAP program. It's the Coaches Assisting Parents, or CAP. And we started putting it together this way. So the CAP program, three basic things that you need to know about the concept. It's a program that's designed for parents and other caregivers. So it's designed for them. It's a resource for nurturing the spiritual growth of children, right? So it's based on doing that. That's the goal. Remember that we are here to form disciples of Jesus Christ, to participate in God's mission of reconciliation. So we want to help that happen with children. And it matches trained coaches with the adults that care for kids. So we have lots of trained coaches in the Diocese of New Jersey, and they are all skilled and experienced in coaching and walking with people down their spiritual path. And we said, why don't we match them with the adults that are caring for kids? And so these are the concepts around which we put the whole thing together. So the way the CAP program is structured right now, and we are talk a little bit about where we are in the process, but it's based around 6 coaching sessions that take place over a 6-month period. These are 50 minutes to an hour long, and the coaches get together with the parents for a 50-minute or hour-long session, and they talk about what's going on with the spiritual formation of their kids. So there's 6 coaching sessions over 6 months. In the middle of the 6 months, there's a weekend retreat at Crossroads. So the families all go to Crossroads, and they do this work, the specialized program that's just for them as they've been moving along this path together as family. Right now, we're in the pilot phase. We have put together 10 coaches with 10 families from around the diocese. And those coaches are being matched up now. And they're going to begin now this month in having their first coaching sessions. So we're doing orientations with the coaches and orientations with the parents to say, what exactly is this about? What's how does this work? What's expected of both the coach and the parents, and how are we going to move forward? So we've had some clergy that have helped us put together this first list of 10 families. And we're going to learn like crazy over the next 6 months. How does this work? What do they need? How's it going to help? The pilot cost, we're doing it right now. The cost, coaching is all covered. Coaching is all covered in the diocesan budget, in the budget of my department. And so the coaching is free to parents. And we were able to work out $150 per family for a weekend at Crossroads, which if you've been to Crossroads or any other family retreat place, that's a really, that's a good deal. And so we put that together. And again, we're trying it to see how it works. So the cost for the whole 6 months is basically $150 for the family. And we provide all the books. There are 3 books that we provide and coaching as well. So we're trying to make sure that this is really affordable and also available if congregations want to put together, to subsidize families even more. It can be done more easily, the lower we can keep the cost. We are also working on making sure it's available in English and Spanish. Juan Monje, who is one of our lead coaches in the diocese, works with us and helps that happen. And so we will be putting all of that together for the launch of the beta version in the fall. So how does it work? What happens is the clergy identify interested families. So the clergy know which families would be interested in doing a focused, more intensive approach, and would be open to exploring with us how this can work. So we ask the clergy to identify interested families. Then we match coaches with those families from the diocesan level. Our coaches the coaches and the families are not from the same congregation. So that there's a nice distance in there. There's good boundaries there for everybody, and that works. As I said, there are 6 50-minute coaching sessions. Midway through, there's the retreat, and then at the end of the 6 months, we have a celebration meal. And at the end of the pilot in July, we'll have a barbecue. And when we start the next one, we'll figure out something fun to do in the spring. So there's a way to celebrate. We also have, which I didn't put here, we also will do surveys, simple short surveys before and after. Each group goes through to see how it worked for them. So there's lots of feedback, big feedback loops, so we can keep learning. One of the things we do in congregational development in this diocese and others is we constantly retool, we constantly rework so that we take what's working and make it better and keep moving that way. You may be asking yourself, is 6 months enough? Once you get started with a coach and that's moving forward, 6 months can go by very quickly. And it does. It goes by fast. So right now, as we do in all coaching in the Diocese of New Jersey, the option to continue going is there. I mean, we expect that people will be able to work as long as they want with a coach. As long as they're excited about being coached and it's useful for them, that's great. On the other side, we also do with our coaching that it's entirely voluntary and goes month to month. So if you get you're going great for a month or two, and then you decide it really isn't for you, you just stop. We don't ask people to make 2-year commitments or, send us the breakup fee. We can't, we don't do that kind of thing. So people are in, it's completely voluntary, but we do plan to have them go for extended periods as long as people want. So this is the way that we are planning to basically roll this out over this time period and be ready for the fall to go into the more developed beta version that will then lead in 2023 to the full-fledged onward movement that we're going to do. So what I'm wondering right now is I'd like to just hear some questions about what your kids are asking about faith. What your kids are asking about faith. What are they thinking about? What are they, what are you hearing? And go ahead and raise your hand in the, use the reaction box, the reaction tab, and tell us what your, what folks are, what your kids are asking you about faith and about God and about things like that. Tiff.
All right, I'll go. So because they're kids, they always ask the big questions, right? Like, how come God allows active shooters? How come God allows this? How come God allows that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They sure do. Another question. So we heard the kind of, why do bad things happen?
Rob, there's one in the chat from Alex.
Okay. Please.
She wrote, I'm struggling to explain the bridge between Jesus and the Eucharist with Jesus as the person in the stories.
Sure. And they'll ask that. I mean, they and don't we all want to know that? So yeah, that's a good thing. Okay. What else?
Another from Claire who says, how does God live in my heart?
Yeah. Oh, sure. They ask questions that really get you too. I mean, they're so heartfelt. What another one? You can do chat or spoken. Some of the questions we know that kids ask are things like, why did grandma die? Or why did my pet die? And sometimes they'll ask a lot of questions about death. What happens?
Lori Bathurst says, how do I know God is real?
Yep. Yeah, sure. And how do I believe in God if I don't see God? Sure. What else?
From Lori, how do I know God is real? Oh, you read that.
Sure. And
how can I believe in God if I don't see God?
Mm-hmm. Let's have a couple more. How are there, Claire asking, how are there three parts to God? Why do I have to go to church? Is there any significant evidence that God exists? Sometimes they'll say, mom and dad, especially the preachers' kids like to do this. I don't believe in God, right? And so how does God know everything I do? Sure. Oh yeah, Art, thank you. Why do people hate people they don't even know? Oh, what a great question. So thank you for all these. Parents are often really challenged with these questions, right? I mean, we don't know. And so the really wonderful part about walking with children and doing spiritual development with your kids is that you get to grow. Because often we don't know how to answer these questions because we don't know how to answer them, because we haven't answered them for ourselves. And we don't have a lot of experience, a lot of us, with articulating it in an age appropriate way. And so we can often feel our own, we hear this a lot from parents, by the way, which is, I don't have the answer for them. I don't know, and they feel their own, they haven't been formed as much as they would like to be able to answer that question. So the beautiful thing about walking with parents as they walk with their children, yes, Juan, they are challenged. And walking with parents as they walk with their children is to watch the parents learn. The parents grow and develop as followers, committed followers of Jesus, as they go through the process of working with their kids on this. And it also, by the way, is tremendously helpful for the church that they go to, because those folks that are doing Christian formation with their kids appreciate the fact that everyone is struggling with it, that some of these questions don't have easy answers, and everybody gets involved in the process in a deeper way, and in a way that takes faith home with the parents for the children. We have to take faith home. We talk about that a lot in faith formation, take faith home. And so the CAP program is a way to sit down with parents, I'm going to talk about coaching now, and say, how can we walk with you in this essential task in the formation of your children? So let's see. Okay, so let's talk a little about what coaching is and coaching isn't. Okay. So unlike preconceived notions you may have about coaching, our coaches do not come equipped with a whistle. Okay, and so they don't come equipped with a whistle to blow at you, or anything like that, or make you run wind sprints or laps or anything. They don't do that. Well, Bruce Montgomery is one of our coaches. I think he's known to do that. So anyway, oh, sorry, Bruce. So they don't, they come alongside. And it's really important to understand that we believe as coaches in the church that you have inner wisdom. You have inner wisdom. You have inner knowing, even if it doesn't feel like it sometimes. You have real inner knowing. In coaches, we talk about that everyone who's being coached is creative, resourceful, and whole. So you have this knowledge in you, even if you don't. It doesn't feel like it sometimes. You have the Holy Spirit in you, and you're interested in your children. So we believe that you do have inner wisdom, and coaches will help guide you to your resources that you need and put them to use. So you start to develop an understanding. The understanding comes from within you, and then you start putting resources together, understanding that the coach is not in charge. You and God are in charge. Okay, so a lot of our folks, as Episcopalians, we're very, we put a lot of emphasis on the fact that we're supposed to use our reason about things. We really value reason in us and in our children. And so we don't want somebody to come in and say, this is what you need to believe. This is what, we're not pouring content into empty containers. Okay. And so what the coach doesn't come in and pour that content into you so you can pour it into them. It's not the way it works. Coach comes alongside and says, you know what? You know a lot about faith and probably a lot more than you think. And we're going to talk about you and your kids. This is not cookie cutter that we're doing with you. So we're going to trust you and your faith to help them and their faith. And we're going to be part of how that works. So what coaching isn't, it is not consulting, it is not mentoring, and it is not advice giving. Okay, not coaching, it is not consulting, mentoring, or advice giving. So we're not hiring someone as a personal consultant in resources for childhood formation. That's not what we bring somebody in to coach you with. They don't do most of the talking, actually. They actually facilitate a conversation where you talk most of the time. But they're very skilled at this. They're good listeners, and they're curious about what God is doing in your life and in the life of your children. Okay, they're very curious, and what they do in conversation with you is bring that up to the surface so you can articulate and work with it. They listen much more than they talk. And people typically love their coaching sessions for this reason, because they don't get to talk about their concerns about their kids' spiritual life very much. They don't get to talk about their fears about the way the world is and their worry about how the church and faith can be relevant to it. So they don't do it. And so coaches do that. And so coaches come alongside and they help you develop action steps that you actually do between sessions. Okay, they ask open-ended questions and they listen deeply. Now, here's where coaching is different from most of the other helping disciplines. Coaching sessions end with action steps, concrete, small scale, what you can do in the next month. So you will generate with your coach what the next appropriate action step is for the development of your children. And you develop it together. You know them. The coach doesn't know them. I don't know them. You know them. You know how they respond to certain things and what could work that you might try. So the coach's job is to listen carefully for what God is doing in your life and in their lives, and then help you take the next step, a concrete action step. And then what that does is that it makes sure that your hopes and your concerns and your insights become central to the work you do together. So when we say the coach is not in charge, we are saying that you and your relationship with God is in charge. And when you do your work work together to come up with these action steps for you, but then we walk with you to help that happen and watch as that occurs, to celebrate the victories and to work on the things that didn't go so well. And you get to grow as your children grow. Okay? These are people who come alongside you as they really are a ministry of encouragement and a ministry of listening and help find the wisdom that's in you. So this is what coaching is and coaching isn't. It's really important to understand that. When you take part in this as a family, you are given resources that help set all this up. So we remind everybody what the role is and what it isn't. We talk about some really excellent books that we get, that we're working with Ann Delgado to provide super texts that have exercises and questions you can ask, and they're all connected to our faith in ways that are really action oriented. So I'm going to talk just a little bit more about this. Then we're going to have some conversation together about where we are. So there are three major principles that are involved here that our coaching in the church says, in this idea that we trust that you are enough. So many of our parents say, gosh, I just don't know. I just don't feel, I'm not qualified to do this. I don't know enough. And what you know enough is that you love them and you want them to grow spiritually and you want them to have a faith life that works for them. You want that for them. We know this. And so God wouldn't give you that nudge. God wouldn't be prodding you in that way if God wasn't then going to help you do it. And you find out what's inside of you this way. So the first principle that we look at is God is already at work in you. What a relief. God is already at work in you. What a relief. The Lord delights in your family with its traditions, its quirks, its challenges, and its celebrations. Isn't it nice to know that? Isn't it nice to somebody nod? Okay, good. Excellent. Thank you. Isn't it wonderful to know the Lord delights in your family? God is just tickled that you're interested. I think God gets real excited about parents who say, you know what, I want my kids to have a faith life. I want my kids to have a vibrant, energized faith life that changes how they see the world and changes what they do in the world, like what we heard before. So God is just delighted by you, by your family. And I love it, the traditions, the quirks. We're all a bit quirky, as we know. And so our families are pretty quirky too. And God's all part of that. God's part of all of that. So, and I'm sure God rolls her eyes regularly watching us together, and but has that real delight in us. The second principle, so that's the first principle, God's already at work. The second principle is that your reflections, insights, and your self-determined monthly action steps move you forward in your relationship with God. Your coach is there with you, helping you make decisions and focusing, encouraging, and celebrating with you. Okay, so you've got this, this God who creates this in you, and the reflections you have, your insights, and your action steps move you forward. And you have to understand a really important part of spiritual growth that we hope would happen in every church and every relationship would be that you have some idea of where you are on your journey, maybe hopefully can articulate that you have some idea of what God is nudging you to do next, where your growth is. Okay, so you know where you are, you have some inkling or nudge, or maybe God, kicks you in the, to move on to the next thing. And then the third thing is that you have a church family and encouragers to help you do it. So you look to your church family, your congregation to help you with resources and encouragement. This is the core, by the way, of solid church and churches that grow rapidly. People who know where they are in their journey, know what their next step is, and can rely on their church to help them with it. That makes a beautiful church structure and a church culture. That's exactly what coaching does. That's why we do it, is because you take action steps based on nudges from God, then you look at them and you pick up what's next. So you're constantly moving and growing. So coaching parents in this way means you are going to be moving and growing, as are your kids. And our hope and our prayer and our intention is that you look back over the 6 months and say, you know what, I grew a lot in that period. And so did my kids. I could see how they changed and how I changed. And you know who's responsible? Who gets the credit? God. And that makes us grateful. So these are all very powerful in spiritual practice. And then the third principle is your coach assists you in encouraging your children's existing spiritual gifts and curiosity. We affirm that children are born with a deep attachment to God. And you know this if you have kids, that they are very connected in a lot of ways to not an understanding of God, but in a reality of God. So our whole point in what we do with coaches assisting parents is for you, because we assume you want this, we assume that you want for your kids or grandkids or nieces and nephews or whoever you're taking care of, that you want them to strengthen their attachment to God for a lifetime. You want to lay the groundwork that will strengthen that attachment. Okay. And so that's what we do. And in fact, one of our lead books that for the class, the folks that are in this pilot program is this little book called Child-Centered Spirituality. And it affirms that children have their own connection with God, and that our job as parents and teachers and clergy is to explore that relationship with them. Explore it with them, learn from it. And they have wonderful things to teach us about who God is and who God can be. Okay. So that's a very powerful and important point of what we're doing. So I want to, at this point, let's have some questions, and then I believe I'm going to break you into some small groups and see. I got a couple of questions for you to do that. But what questions do you have at the moment from what I've been teaching? And feel free to raise your hand and thing. Allie, please please.
Hi. So I have two questions. One,
Yes,
so how do I sign up for this? Because I've never heard of this and this sounds amazing. And then also, have you given any thought, like at my congregation, just on vestry, we have 3 parents with kids under 5.
Yes.
I know you said it's really individual, but might there be a way to consider like congregational small groups so we could all go together on like a babysitter during the 6 sessions?
Yep.
I'm just throwing that out because like that could make that a little bit less.
Sure. So I can answer a couple of different questions. Let me answer your question first. I'm going to give you an email, and it's a really difficult email to remember. It's cap at dioceseofnj.org. To send, if you are interested and want to be on the list for more information and the fall class, the fall beta, just send me your name. Send me your name and, let me know who you are. And, also it'd be great if I know your kids' ages. Would be great to know.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but the great thing about this book and the other books that we use is they're designed for all ages. This book starts with toddlers and goes up through teenagers. So we have lots of breadth, and the resources that we provide are all designed for any age. Okay. We are certainly open to having a coach. Maybe a coach could coach 3 sets of parents at once. We coach in triads all the time. So if 3 sets of parents wanted to come together, like you said, and be able to save money on things and that kind of thing, no problem. One of the great things about being in the experimental phase, the beta phase, is that we can try lots of things, and we'll just do our best to do it. And if we have this, if we have this issue of having way too many people who want coaching, that is what we call a high quality problem. Okay, so we've got a lot of coaches already trained, and we'll train more. I think this has the potential to be really, really big. So, other questions?
Tiff asked, what is the difference between coaching and spiritual direction? Good question.
Right. I think the primary difference between coaching and spiritual direction is the action step emphasis. They certainly both talk about where God is in this. In it for you is certainly central, because we trust and believe that. But we have but definitely, I think it's the more practical action step oriented. I have a spiritual director, And some of you know that my wife is, a spiritual director as well. And I think it's not quite as neatly defined, but of course there are spiritual directors who do that. So, there's lots of different ways to think about it. So there's some overlap for sure. But it's based on what steps are you taking and how are you doing, and a kind of accountability. Of course, that's in direction too. So yeah, there's lots of overlap. Oh, I can see the question from Catherine at Bayhead. We will be doing additional training for coaches. Now, here's where you find out about that. You send an email to coaches. I'm going to give you this at the end. Coaching at dioceseofnj.org, and say, Rob, I want to be a coach. And we are planning a coach session to start. Thank you. We're planning a session to start in March. And so get that to me and we'll get you more information about what's involved. Coaching we take coaching seriously. If we're going to, send people out to do this work, we take it quite seriously. So it's not a one-off kind of thing. It takes 6 months typically to learn. And there are a number of exercises and training that's involved because, we're working with people's hearts here and we want to be very careful. But yes, if you feel a gift for this, we would love to have you do it. And again, remember that if you start it and you don't like it, you can come to one training and then never do it again. But most people like to stick with it through the 6. What else? What else? Okay, so we're gonna have you have a little time for discussion groups now, and what I want to do. Let's see if I can find this. I'm going to stop sharing so I can break you up into groups. Can you purchase the groups without attending? Not only can you purchase the books without attending, we will give you the book. We will give you the books. Okay, so yes, this is why this is a perk of being part of the Diocese of New Jersey. They give a very generous budget. Well, how you get them is by sending. Here's the last email I'm going to give you is church growth at dioceseofnj.org. Church growth at dioceseofnj.org. So if you're interested in CAP specifically, send it to CAP. If you're interested in learning to coach, send it to coaching. If you're interested in anything else, including getting books, you just send it to Church Growth. Okay. And if you send it to any one of them, we'll figure it out. It's not like, if we get 10,000 of them tomorrow, then we'll have to worry. Okay. But we'll figure it out. And we're happy to provide books. That's what we do. So we'll get that for you. Charlene. Yes, ma'am. You're muted. You're still muted. There you go.
There we go. All right. The thing that I'm thinking about is this is certainly for parents who, or at least it appears to be parents who are active members of your community and are interested in making their children's lives better and different.
Cool.
I'm curious, how do you plan to address those families that say, we're too busy for this. I don't need this. My kids will be fine. They have Sunday school. I mean, there seems to be, I'm concerned about the resistance for a lot of people that I work with kids all the time, and they send their kids, but they're not always active within their own faith or community.
That's a really good question. I have a couple of answers for it. First thing is that not everybody's going to want to do it. I mean, it's a big commitment. It's a 6-month commitment with action steps and that kind of thing. So we know that, it's going to follow, it's almost certainly going to follow any other kind of adoption pattern. There will be innovators that'll start at the beginning, and then you'll get your early adopters and your late adopters. And then I don't mean this, it sounds judgmental, but then we get the laggards at the end. And so it's just, and what will happen is one of the things I knew in my parishes that I work in was that parents talk to each other. And so if they're having a good experience, then they do share that with each other. It's true if they have a bad experience too, but they do that. So, so I think part of it is, we can't make anybody, we wouldn't want to, coaching is always voluntary, always, because you can't coach somebody who doesn't want to be. It just doesn't work. We're not open to things. So, so there's no forcing or anything that has to do with it's entirely up to people if they want it. Given the exceptionally low cost, I hope that people will at least be willing to try it, because it doesn't cost them anything if they don't go to the retreat.
Right.
So we hope that they'll at least give it a try. I would say one other thing about it that's important is that, remember, this is, while it is coming, and my heart is about forming disciples of Jesus. Okay.
Right.
But we also know that not all parents, know how they would articulate that. And some of them wouldn't articulate it that way at all. So we know that there may be couples where, one of them is a church person and a Christian person, and one of them is something else. Maybe they're spiritual, but not religious. Maybe they're an atheist. Maybe they're a Buddhist. There's lots of ways that families come together. That's why we provide this in a way that puts the parents in charge of how things are going and what they're doing, because we have to do it that way. We have to recognize that people live in the real world with their kids. Now, because it's a diocesan program, we're not going to shy away from talking about Jesus. I mean, but we're certainly not going to be forcing him on anybody either. We're going to celebrate how God is moving in people's lives. And, and we're going to work through that and walk through that with people. But there's never any, I can't imagine anybody saying, I hope you're going to be prepared for the altar call next week. It's like, that gives me hives, and I'm a teacher. So, so yeah, thank you, Caroline. It is an invitation. So we want to work with people where they are.
Right.
And I think, given the fact that I hope people will be encouraged by the fact that this is all brand new and we're trying to figure out how to do it well. And we live by the principle that if you try to figure out all the problems before you do something, that you'll never do it. And so there's lots of ways that, things we're going to have to learn. We'll learn them in the pilot this spring and summer. We'll learn them in the beta that's coming up in the fall. And we'll just keep working with it. Keep working. Yeah. That's a great question though. Yeah. And
I'm actually looking to figure out how the invitation is extended. And that's really, there's always a hesitance with people because it's like, oh no, one more thing. And yes. From a parental point of view, I understand that. But I think we have to figure out a way that invites a parent to understand this. And obviously they're seeing something that's important because they're seeing, they're bringing them to church, whether they come and stay with them, whether they come in or they choose, we have to play soccer before we go to church or after we go to church. There's all those kinds of things, but I think we have to look at how individually in each church, and it may be different. It may be just something I have to look at it in my own parish, is that there has to be an invitation. There has to be something that says, this is something that will be important to you in your future. Not necessarily starting with, we're going to make disciples of Jesus. What we're really doing is making a family unit, because it's out of that family unit that we have the extended invitation to God in our lives.
I think that's a really good way of understanding it. And I'm going to, at the end, we're going to give you a link for the CAP information sheet that we're using right now.
Okay.
Which is going to form this invitation that you're talking about. We know that people already have a lot to do. We know that some of these issues and some of this content can be very challenging. We know that that's the case as well. That's one of the things that's so nice about believing in them. That in my ministry, and I think in everyone's ministry, I think, is that we believe that God is acting in the life at God is operating in every level of their life, of that family.
Yeah.
And as a Christian, I believe that Jesus is loving them. And that Jesus doesn't care if they believe in him or not, that he actually is loving them, just loving them to pieces all the time. And that we get to be part of that, but we don't want to be part of that in an obnoxious way.
Right.
And one of the things that, forgive me, my friends who are Methodists and other religions, I say this I hope in good humor, but if you want to be a Christian, being an Episcopalian is the least obnoxious way. So anyway, it's just because I think we're not training people to be obnoxious about it. What we're doing is we're saying God is working at every level of your life, and we want to walk with you. So parents are invited to try it, and if parents are bringing their kids to church already, we're talking about simple action steps. Let's develop a single way of having a practice in our family that's easy to do, and let's do it for a month and see what happens. Or let's do and it could be, or what's a service thing we can do together? Let's take some of that advocacy we were talking about. What can we do together? And then reflect on it where God is in it. We're talking about little steps, right? We're not talking about adding a ton. And we're not ever talking about adding a ton of stuff, but I think parents believe that this is really an important thing in their kids' lives. And so I think they will be interested in how it could be done, in a way that works within their family.
Yeah.
And that's the way coaching works, is you come up with your action steps. Coach doesn't assign them, and like I said, make you do push-ups if you don't do it. The coach doesn't do that. So we got several coaches on this call. So thank you, Charlene, for that and for the conversation, because I think you asked the questions that a lot of people are asking. So I want to jump to this question about the confirmation that Donna asks. That's a very interesting question, Donna, and I wouldn't see why you couldn't coach families through confirmation prep. I mean, you're already being given in confirmation prep, you're already being given practices and things to think about. So why not do it with some simple action steps where you can feel growth? Why not make it support? Why not coach them through? If you've got stuff going on in your congregation, then bring it up to your coach and say, we're doing J2A, or we're doing, Right 13, or we're doing whatever. Let's talk. And the coach will say, let's talk about that. What do you think your next step is? Let's work on that together. And the coach will be there. So you've got to this is incredibly flexible because it's based on you. Now our coaches, like I said, are all keen disciple makers. They all love the idea of forming disciples of Jesus. And we hold that that's kind of what the church is about. So, so it's about that, but it's about people's relationship with God first and foremost. And I think what excites me about it is the idea of lifting up, equipping parents to have conversations with children, to have really fruitful conversations and explorations and curiosity with kids, and to be able to do that. So, Caroline, I agree that these are life techniques, because one of the things that we love to do, and I hope we can train another 20 plus. We train almost 40 coaches in basic coaching in this diocese. I would love to train another 25 or 30. I'd love to do that, in the class coming up. And you will learn not just this kind of thing, but you'll learn basics for communication and life skills that are really useful. And so it's a way of connecting with our bigger coaching effort as part of the culture of coaching that we have here. So we have a few more minutes for other comments or questions, or I'd also love to hear. Tiff, I'll say that in a minute. Tiffany, Yes, ma'am. You're still muted. You're still muted. You can't unmute. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, the host has to unmute right now.
Gotcha.
Okay. Sorry. Thanks, Rob. As you're talking about this, what occurred to me is how essential would be, especially in our youth, in growing in relationship with God, and not just applying life skills and understanding that God is outside of church on Sundays and church activities, but is in their joys and is something to lean into in their most challenging and difficult moments. And as coaches, you model that behavior to them on a consistent daily basis, which is so important in their understanding.
Thank you. That's definitely true. And we also have to go back, just to build on that comment, we have to go back to the idea that, like it or not, if you're a caregiver, a primary caregiver to a child, you are teaching them about God. You're teaching about God every day. They are watching you and they're learning. And so we can't escape that, because survey after survey after survey tells us basic stuff about children's spiritual formation is their number one teaching is what their parents do. So we're trying to make sure that they're equipped. As many of you aren't aware of this, but we lost a couple of generations because it became very difficult for our parents to do this. Kids were not getting formed, and what they were seeing around them was not what they were hearing in church. And the baby boomers were the first generation that took off. And so we have a lot of parents who have not had particularly strong formation, and the church is responsible in a large part for that. And so we're trying to change that, because doing this work with your kids changes you. So Donna, you have your hand raised. And you are, there you go.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry that I cannot be on camera this morning, but I did want to speak to, as what Rob said, with regard to it being life-changing, that when you become a coach, and you'll know whether it's for you or not after the first couple of meetings. And if you decide it is for you, as you go along in the process, you grow not only in your faith, but you grow in your confidence, you grow in your skills. I think, and I've seen it in everyone else who started in all of the cohorts, but especially in the one that I was in, that it enables you to speak more about Jesus, to help those around you become disciples because of that, because it frees you to just express your love for Jesus and how you want that for others. And if nothing else with coaching over the last 2.5, 3 years, it has helped me become a better leader. It has helped me become a better mother, a better friend, and an all-around better person, because it does engage your listening skills. And these are life-changing skills that will help you in any part of your life, no matter what you decide to do with it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Donna. And I'm going to end with this little story that when I first learned coaching techniques 6 or 7 years ago, and I first learned the basic techniques. And these are the techniques that we teach for our what we call coaching 101, or the Barnabas method. Barnabas being an encourager, the son of encouragement. We teach these. And so I was working on the Barnabas techniques, and my wife said, and Carla says to me, she said, "Rob, are you Barnabasing me again?" And I said, "Yes, I think I am." And she stopped and said, "I think you should keep doing it, because I actually think you're listening to me now." So that's what happened. And it's a simple technique that people can use. Our training is wonderful. It helps teach you how to do it. You get practice, you get support. There's all kinds of resources. It's really very, very proud of our coach training that we do here. And I'm looking forward to do it in the spring. So you'll be hearing more about this. So I'm going to I want to go ahead and wrap us up and take you to your next steps. And this is what I said before. If you want more information on the September beta, you want to be on the wait list for that, please let us know, cap@dioceseofnj.org. If we get a good set of account, then I'll know how many coaches we need, and we will endeavor to do our best. I would love to have a bunch of people come and do this. We will, like I said, great quality problem to have. If you want to learn more about becoming a coach. Oh, Dolce, the training is held online. So it's all done on Zoom. And then if you'd like to learn more about becoming a coach, you can go to coaching@dioceseofnj.org, and we'll be glad to talk with you about it. By the way, the coaching training is also free. I mean, what a deal, I ask you. And then for a copy of the information sheet, there's your link for that. And if you get us if you just send us a request for that link, if you can't get it off of here, send us a request for it on one of the other emails, and we'll find you. So there's 2 more questions. Hold on. Okay. So thank you, everybody, for being part of this. This is a very real world thing to help our kids become people who do the advocacy stuff in the earlier parts. It helps them to have life skills that will help them think of others and live a life for others, which is what Jesus' disciples do. So we're just delighted to be able to do it and look forward to hearing from you.